As we jump into the word today, we're going to start a new talk today called Heart for the Family. There's a story that takes place in the 1800s. It takes place on the Mississippi River. This story starts in the Memphis area. Two boats were leaving, and they were carrying cargo, and they were going down to New Orleans. And as they were on this way, some of the sailors from each of the boats kind of saw each other and were like, "Hey, where are you going?" Like, "We're going to New Orleans." "Us too." They're like, "We're going to beat you there." And the other sailors looking back, I'm like, "In that old rust bucket? There's no way." Well, these sailors start chirping back and forth across the river, and then the competition begins. The race is on. Now it's about manhood, and it's about trying to get there before the other person. Now remember, their object is to take this cargo to New Orleans, not to be in a race. As they're going, the boats are going as fast as they can. They're shoveling in all the coal into the oven, to the steamboat, and making it go. And one boat eventually starts to lag behind. And the problem was they didn't have enough coal for that kind of voyage. They didn't have enough coal to be able to put in there to go at that speed, at that pace. Well, a young sailor, he's looking around on the boat, and he has this idea. What if we put some cargo in the oven? So he takes the cargo in the wooden box and he throws it in the oven, and sure enough, the fire starts blazing again, and this steamboat starts chugging along, and they catch up, and then they go, "Yes, we're going to catch up, and we're going to beat them now." And so they start putting all of the cargo in. Well, long story short, they get to New Orleans first, but they've got no cargo. Sometimes in life, we're so worried about trying to get ahead or beat somebody else or win the competition that we burn the cargo in the process. God has given all of us precious cargo: our families, our friends, our kids, our spouses. We need to remember to not sacrifice the cargo to achieve the desires in our hearts and our lives. Today, I want to take time and I want to talk about a heart for the family. We're going to look at one man who had an incredible heart for his family. This man is the name of Joshua, and we're going to be in Joshua chapter 24, starting in verse 15. I need to give you a little background, a little context of what's happening here. Joshua has led the Israelites into the promised land. Previously to the promised land, they had been slaves in Egypt. Moses led them out of Egypt, but then they were in the desert for 40 years. Well, now Joshua has led the next wave. They've gone in and they have fought battle after battle after battle to win this land that we refer to as the promised land. After all of these victories, Joshua gathers all the heads of the tribes. There was 12 tribes, and he splits up the land accordingly among the 12 tribes. Joshua is 110 years old when this is happening. He gathers all of the people together, all the leaders together, and he wants to have a talk with them. He wants to affirm something in them. He wants them to really understand where they came from and where they need to go. Joshua reminds them of God's faithfulness to Abraham, to Isaac, to Jacob. He reminds them of how God freed them from Egypt. He reminds them how God had sustained them through the wilderness, and reminded them how God led the battle and was victorious when they went into the promised land. You see, Joshua knew his life was coming to an end, and he wanted to tell the people the importance of keeping God first for yourself and keeping God first in your family. You see, Joshua had a heart for his family and a heart for his people. Joshua chapter 24, verse 15. "But if you refuse to serve the Lord, then choose today whom you will serve. Would you prefer the gods of your ancestors before the Euphrates? Or will it be the gods of the Amorites in whose land you now live? But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." That word serve in Hebrew, it's abad. Turn to your neighbor and say, abad. It means to choose to be a servant. It means to choose to work for somebody, to to pledge your life to somebody. Now, every one of us in life, we choose to serve something or someone. Maybe we're choosing to serve a company that we work for. Maybe we're choosing to serve our own ambitions in life. Maybe we're choosing to serve God. What is it in life that you are choosing to serve? How many ever been to the Cheesecake Factory? The Cheesecake Factory has a book for the menu. Literally, it is bound on the edge of this. It's ridiculous. There are so many options when you go to the Cheesecake Factory. It's like you need 25 minutes to even read through all the choices. So when I go to the Cheesecake Factory, I got a couple of items that I'm like, nope, I don't even want to read them. I'm just going with this one. I've had success with that one, going with that one. Sometimes in life, we have so many options, so many things to choose at us, so many different things are coming at us, so many different messages are coming at us that it's hard to know which one do we prioritize? Which one do we put in front of the other? Joshua is trying to remind these people, listen, if you want to be like the past, you want to be like the Egyptians and you want to worship their gods, then fine, you can be like them. Look how it ended for them. Or if you want to be like the gods of the Amorites, then sure, you can be like them. But those are also the people that we just conquered through God's help. You want to be like them? Or do you want to choose God? We all have a choice in our lives, but who do we choose? Do we choose to serve ourselves? Do we choose to serve wealth, power, influence, control, success, our 401k? Do we choose to serve and follow society? Whatever society says is the next thing that we need to be pushing for and believing for and getting behind. Do we choose to serve what they're saying? Or do we choose to serve God? Now, Joshua is the head of his household. Now, he's 110 years old. So that means he's got kids, he's got grandkids, he probably has great-grandkids as well. He is the patriarch of his family. Who's the head of your household? Maybe it's you. Maybe it's a grandpa or a grandma. Maybe it's a mom or a dad. Who's the head of the household? Joshua, as a representative of his household, his entire household, he gets before all the leaders of Israel, and this is what he says to them. But as for me, I choose God. Then he goes on to say, my family chooses God. But notice that he starts with, I choose God. A lot of times families get divided and split up and like, it's okay if they go to the church, but I don't have to go to church, I choose God. His family would have included his spouse, his children, servants, and anyone else that was under his care. A few weeks ago, I was listening to a podcast by some health guru type people. And these three guys were talking, and they got on this really interesting conversation. They started talking about the health benefits of going to church or being a part of a faith community. And what was so interesting to me about it was they were all talking about how they were going to encourage their kids to go to church and be a part of that community, that faith community, to learn morals, to learn values, to get behavior, all those good things. But then these men said, but you know what, I don't really believe that stuff, and I'm not really gonna go either. And I'm thinking, you're telling them that this is good for you. You should go, there's benefits for you to go, but I'm not gonna do it. It starts with us. And for the men in the room, it starts with us and our families. And for the women in the room, it starts with you and your family too. It starts with us. God wants families to go to church, not just kids, not just a mom. He wants us to come as a collective and united unit. Notice that Joshua doesn't say, I choose God, but I'm going to do it without my family. No, he does it with his family. This means that he has talked to them about the importance of who God is. This means he's talked to them about the faithfulness of God in their past. This means he's talked to them about all the stories and relived all those moments with them so they know who God is. One of the interesting things about these verses right here is the Hebrew here, it actually has a continuous action implied behind it, meaning I have chosen God and I will choose God. This is not a one-time event in life. Or, hey, when I was this age, and no. Choose to follow God. Choose to serve God. Now, you may be sitting there and say, well, what if I'm not the head of the household? Then my encouragement to you is do the best that you can. Do the best that you can. You got to choose for yourself first. And maybe one day when you're a head of a household, you can choose for your family as well. Some people who come to church, maybe you're coming by yourself. Or maybe you're a kid or a teenager who's come in to kids' church or youth or whatnot, and you've come and God's got a hold of your heart, and that's awesome. We're so excited that you're here. We're so glad that you are a part of us and that God is breathing life into you. But I also want to tell you that you can be the one to rewrite your future and rewrite a new legacy. When my dad was 7 years old, a little old lady invited him to church. I don't think that little old lady knew the ramifications of inviting him to church. You see, because my dad gave his heart to the Lord. And as he gave his heart to the Lord, then he wanted to go back to his family and tell them about God and invite them to church. We started with his siblings. Then he started with his parents. And before you know it, his entire family was going to church. He grows up, starts his own family. His kids are going to church. Some are pastors, some are serving as worship pastors, some are serving in other ministries. His grandkids go to church. All because a little old lady invited him. Young people in the room, or whether you're old or young and you're here by yourself, I want to let you know that you can start a new legacy. You can start a new legacy. If you were to look at my family tree, it would be like the one side, you're like, what is going on there? How did this happen from that? I'm just going to tell you, it's Jesus. It's the difference of Jesus. So I want to encourage you, whether you're here on your own, wherever you're at in your journey, choose Jesus. Plod forward in your life and rewrite your future. If we choose God, then we're also choosing to have a heart for the family. Now, families come in all shapes and sizes. Perhaps you're here today and you don't have any family that live close by or whatnot. Maybe you're single, whatever it is. Then the family that you have is the ones that you choose. They're your friends. Choose your friends wisely. Love them, encourage them, support them, talk to them about who Jesus is. Families are meant to be places of love, support, and growth. They're places where we talk about our values, where our relationships are forged, and where we find belonging and we find purpose. Over the next few minutes, I just want to give you some tips about how we can have a heart for our family, how to strengthen our families. The first one is prioritizing time and presence. Prioritizing time and presence. Listen, it's so easy today to get caught up in all the stuff that's going on. Our schedules are crazy. They're jam-packed. You're running around doing this and that, and you can get so caught up that we unintentionally start to neglect our family. Proverbs 17:6 says this: grandchildren are the crowning glory of the aged. Parents are the pride of their children. How many grandparents in the house today? How many grandparents are proud grandparents? I've been told that being a grandparent is better than being a parent because you get to send the kids back. Pump them full of sugar, give them a present, send them back to mom and dad. Later this afternoon, I have the honor to be able to get together with my side of the family. and 3 generations will be represented who love the Lord, who are serving the Lord. My dad, the greatest thing that he would say is his family. Seeing his kids serve God, seeing his grandkids serve God. How many of you like food? How many of you like leftover food? All right. How many of you like, it depends what it is? Now, I'm the type of person that if it's pizza, I'm good with that. I'll reheat that and eat that. If it's enchiladas, oh, buddy, I'm eating that. If it's Taco Bell, nope. If you're eating that anyways, you're probably hurting. There are things in life that are just better fresh. Now, how many of you like fresh food? My wife likes fresh food. She hates leftovers. How many of you hate leftovers? Yeah. Here's what I want to say with this. Sometimes in life, we get so busy that unintentionally we give our families leftovers. Our leftover energy, our leftover time, our leftover presence. We need to remember to give our best to them. You know, I would encourage you, if you're not doing something like this, at least once a week, try to have a family meal together. A time when you come together where you talk and you share about your week. You share about what's going on in your life. One of the things that we do, and when we do this is I will say this, tell me something good. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of negativity in the world. There's a lot of negative stuff going on, and we can get so caught up and focused on the negative stuff. So I try to say, tell me something good. Tell me something good that God's doing in your life. It may be, hey, Dad, I got an A in my class today. Well, fantastic. It may be, hey, Dad, I made a basket today at recess. Fantastic. It doesn't matter what it is, but you're starting conversation. You're helping them to see the world in a different way. You're helping them to see the positive things that are happening, not just focus on the negative. When we are having a heart for our family, perhaps that means having an intentional game night. Play games with one another every once in a while. Get that competition brewing. Get that stirred up and having fun and having laughter. It may mean going out with your spouse or having an intentional time with your spouse. It may be doing activities together, throwing a ball or having a tea party or whatever it may be, or going to the movies, having time together. Our families should receive our utmost care and attention and love. And we should all want to have a sign in our house that say, no leftovers here. We want to give our fresh. We want to give our best to our families. The next thing I want to talk about is having a heart for our family means practicing unconditional love and forgiveness. If you hear nothing else from me today, this is it. You were the first and last Jesus that your family sees. We need to show our families what unconditional love and forgiveness looks like. Now, how many of you ever had an argument in your family? Disagreements happen. Things start maybe flying because your kids are getting mad at each other or poking each other, and I'm not touching you. Yes, you are. Oh, you took my food. Why did you? And all these things, and then it only kind of gets bigger as they get older and whatnot, and all these things can start to stir up. But what we need to do is in our families is show unconditional love. Mistakes are going to be made. Hurt feelings are going to happen. But we need to show unconditional love and forgiveness. Colossians 3, verse 13 and 14. Make allowance for each other's faults and forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you must forgive others. Above all, clothe yourself with love, which binds us all together in perfect harmony. In verse 13, it says, make allowance. That literally means to make room. Turn to somebody around and say, you need to make some room. Listen, we are all going to offend each other at some point in life. Your kids are going to offend you. They're going to offend their sibling. They're going to whatever, make a mistake in life. But our families should be a place where we extend unconditional love and also show forgiveness. And it goes on to say that we need to clothe ourselves in love. We need to wear love and we need to model unconditional forgiveness. When we create an environment where we can say things like, I love you, I forgive you, it's okay, let's move forward. You're creating an environment where healing can take place. You're creating an environment where kids and spouses and whoever, that they're not concerned and anxious about everything because they know that they are supported and cared for. The next tip that I have is having a heart for the family means using discipline to teach. Proverbs 13:24 says this, those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Now listen, before we get all up in arms, what does this mean about the rod? The first pastor that I worked for, his dad, there's another verse in Proverbs, it says something like this, beat them, for they will not die. His dad used to always quote that to him because he was a naughty kid. Now listen, the rod that is mentioned, you need to understand this from a Hebrew context. A rod was used by shepherds to guide their flock, to direct them. The rod was also used to protect them from their enemies. The rod was also used to discipline them and to tell them to get back in line. In life, we need to teach our kids discipline. Now, whatever method you choose to do that in, I'm not saying you got to spank them, whoop them, whatever you prefer to do. That's up to you. But what I'm saying is we need to teach our kids discipline. We need to teach our kids that there is consequence for our actions, good or bad. And we need to instill that into them. Discipline isn't a bad thing. It's something that teaches us to grow. And if we love our kids, we want to help them grow so they can become good human beings. The next part we want to talk about is having a heart for our family means nurturing open communication. James 1:19. Understand this, my dear brothers and sisters. You must all be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. When we're in a family unit, again, it's the first place that we show Jesus, and it's the last place that we see Jesus. We're the model of who Jesus is. Sometimes we need to slow down what we're saying. Sometimes we need to listen a little more before we make a comment, before we make a judgment, before we make a decision. We need to slow down. I mean, to try and not get angry. I'm going to tell you right now, my youngest, 3 years old, last night, I don't know what happened to him. Insane. He is up every 30 minutes throughout the night. It's a miracle that I'm standing here today. I am not kidding. I had energy drink this morning. That's what got me going. And then at 4 o'clock in the morning, he comes in again. He's running around. He's all, I'm up. I want my clothes on. I want my shoes. Earlier in the night, he had come in with his shoes on, trying to get in the bed, kicking me and all kinds of things. And anyways, we need to love our kids no matter what. No matter what. And I'm going to be honest, I was struggling with this slow to get angry. I have to ask God for forgiveness. In our families, we need to practice active listening, empathy, and understanding. These are vital ingredients for our families to succeed and to create strong connections. The next thing I want to talk about is having a heart for the family means teaching honor and respect. Ephesians 6:2-3 says this, honor your father and mother. This is the first commandment with the promise. If you honor your father and mother, things will go well for you, and you will have a long life on earth. When we honor our parents, we're showing respect, and we're creating a culture of dignity, of gratitude, and harmony. How many of you know in our culture today, we do not have a culture of honor and respect anymore? My wife is a teacher. Honor and respect is something that has gone out of the window for a lot of young kids. It's something that we as families, we need to instill, we need to teach, we need to help them. Honor and respect carries over into all the different areas of our life, whether we're working for somebody or whether it's for police or coaches or the elderly or bosses, whoever it may be. We need to learn honor and respect, but that starts in our home. When I was about 26 years old, I had started youth pastoring at a church in San Jacinto. I got there and, I was trying to set up my office, make it real youth, friendly and whatnot. I painted my office orange and gray. I'm painting, and Pastor Ron had been a very successful pastor over many, many, many years, pastored very, very large churches in Canada and also Covina area. And he had retired, but he had come on board as the seniors pastor and the pastor of the pastor. He came on in this mentorship role. Well, he came down to my office when I was painting, and he always had this phrase that he'd say, "How's Nick today?" I'm like, "I'm doing good, just painting my office." And he's like, "Oh, man, that's really nice." It's like, "Man, I wish I could get my office painted." And he's like, "But my problem is I can't really lift my arm that high to do that kind of stuff anymore." He was 80 years old. I didn't say that. And so I said, "Pastor Ron, do you know what color you want to paint it?" "Yeah, I think I could figure that out." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you just buy the paint and I'll paint it tomorrow?" He's like, "What?" He's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Absolutely." I'm like, "I want to honor you. You've gone before. You've done so much for the kingdom of God." So the next day I'm out there painting, and he's so grateful and appreciative of it. And that instant, that paid dividends to me way beyond just a simple thank you. I was mentored by a great person who gave me encouragement, who also could kick me in the rear if I needed it. Started this relationship. You see, in families, we need to create an atmosphere where we can have honor and respect. And just as a courtesy to all of us, let's remember to honor our elders. The next thing we want to talk about is having a heart for our family. It means cultivating spiritual growth. When we're in a family unit, we don't just teach our faith is caught by those around us. Our kids are always watching. And they see what's going on. They see if God's a real priority to you or not. They're watching. Are you creating an environment where you're showing them who Jesus is? Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 5. "And you must love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I'm giving you today. Repeat them again and again to your children. Talk about them when you are at home and when you are on the road, when you are going to bed and when you are getting up." Basically, at all times, we should be practicing and showing our faith at mealtime, at bedtime, at any time. One of the things I realized just in the last couple weeks is my oldest, if I ask him to pray, he goes for it. But I realized something that with one of my other kids, I'd asked her to pray as we were getting ready for bed one day, and her words back to me were, "Well, that's something you do." And I went, "No, that's something we do. Pray with me." So she's like, "Well, I don't know what to." I'm like, "Well, just repeat after me." We just want to start a conversation with God. We want to thank Him. We want to present our requests to Him. And we listen. That's all it is. I want to encourage you as families teach each other how to pray. I'm not saying you got to pray together every single day or 5 times a day or whatever, but there are moments when there are opportunities for us to pray. When my oldest was 3 years old, I was really sick, and I remember this. I was sitting on the couch, and I was like sweating and shivering and all the things, and he came up on the couch. He put his hand on my head, and he said, "Jesus, help my daddy." Now, how did he know to do that? And I was crying, by the way. How did he know to do that? Because he had seen it. Parents, one of the greatest legacies that we could live is to teach our children to pray. It's giving them tools for the rest of their life. I would encourage you also, every once in a while, do a Bible story or something, or talk through a scripture. Hey, what do you think this means? How would you apply this in your life? Encourage each other to seek God's guidance and wisdom in all aspects of your life. As we get ready to close today, I want to encourage you, wherever you're at, if you're a single today, if you're here by yourself, or if you're here representing a family unit, be like Joshua when he says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." It starts with us. We're the first and last Jesus they see. It starts with us. Will we have a heart for our families? Will we protect it? Will we nurture it? Will we develop it? And maybe you're here today and maybe all your kids are grown up, or maybe you don't have kids of your own. I want to highly encourage you. There are kids. There are adults who need people to love them, encourage them, mentor them, be a friend to them. There may be a kid on your street that needs a father figure in their life. There are all kinds of ways that families come into play and take shape and form. But know that we have a responsibility to love others. And if you're one of our senior saints, one of our elders in this room, I want to let you know God has so much more for you. The wisdom, the experience that you have, we need it. Please teach us. Please love on the kids around us. Please love on the kids in your neighborhood. Be an encouragement to them. It's really easy to judge, to get angry. But what if we love instead? What if we show Jesus? What if we teach forgiveness? What if we teach mercy? What if we teach them honor and respect? You could be making an impact for the rest of someone's life.